What's really stopping you? And as many of you said, this is a topic that's been coming up, right? I think throughout all our lives, there's always things that we have these visions and these big plans and big goals, and we're like, yeah, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that. Later, I'm going to do it later, I'll do it another day. We stop ourselves for so many reasons, but I think there's some roots, and that's what I want to dig up today, is to see what's really there. What's the general core that causes us to feel anchored to where we are instead of propelled towards where we want to go. Because I think we get these visions and we get these insights and this sense of direction, and it's almost like we have all this energy and motivation and excitement and inspiration, but we're still tied to the dock, and so we're revving the motor, but we're not going anywhere. So what are we tied to? That's the question. When we ask what's really stopping you, what's anchoring you down? What's holding you back? Or maybe more subtly, what are you holding on to that's not letting you go forward? Makes me think of somebody explained to me once how they trap monkeys here in Indonesia and also in Thailand and other places. And what they do is they'll take a coconut, they'll cut it open, they'll empty it out a little bit, and then put a little sweet treat inside. And then they tie the coconut to a tree. And then they just wait. And of course, a monkey comes along, notices the sweet thing, maybe smells it, sticks its hand into this little hole of the coconut, and grabs whatever's inside. Now, as soon as it's grabbed this sweet treat, its hand shape has changed, so it can't pull its hand back out unless it let it go. And the trapper just walks up calmly, grabs the monkey, because, similar to us with our monkey mind, the monkey's like freaking out, panicking, shouting, going all over the place, but won't let go. And I think this is what we're doing half the time, is we'll have these desires to go forward in our lives, but we're not letting go of something else. Somebody recently said to me that all of life in this reality is a barter system, a trade. I thought it was an interesting concept. And he used the idea of oxygen, right? Like, how do we breathe oxygen? Well, we trade carbon dioxide for it, right? We expel carbon dioxide, plant takes it, it's like, thank you, gives us oxygen. And if you start to look, actually in most of nature, this is true. There's this cyclical bartering system, this way of trading and exchanging resources that allows for the abundance of all, not just a few. That's a really interesting concept, actually. It could fix the world if we really got on board with that. That if what I'm not using, you could use, and what you're not using, I could use, we could start to trade things instead of just accumulating. And I think this accumulation mindset is part of the problem of what stops us in going forward. It's like we weigh ourselves down with our histories and our past. Sometimes the great things, the accomplishments, the achievements, the possessions we've been able to acquire, and then also the traumas and the negative things and the things we don't want to experience ever again, but we hold in our memory and in our reference points. And all of this, it's like we're sticking it in pockets, and then we're trying to go forward in life. We're like, ugh, it's heavy, it's hard. Even more so, what comes to my mind as a vision is, in medieval times, it would wear all these armor and all these different things, right? And I always wonder, because in the movies, they move in that armor like it's like super lightweight. And I know it wasn't. That was lead, iron armor. That stuff's heavy. So I'm sure they were like, go to battle! Right? Like barely being able to move. We do the same thing. We're protecting ourselves because of our history and our past. The ways in which our mind has said, ooh, that moment didn't feel good, or that may have led to danger, or this is a possible threat. Let me put a wall, a brick, an armor, a shield, something up. And as you've been growing throughout your life, you've been putting more and more of those up. And eventually you have so many that this is all that's on the exterior and you're holding it. Of course it's difficult to move forward in your life if you're carrying so much from your past. I work with a lot of clients. I've got a healing center just a few minutes from here. And one of the things that comes up a lot is this idea of what they're trying to resolve from their past. And they're trying to figure out, okay, well, why did that happen? And how can I move past it? Or how can I, heal from it? It's a very interesting concept to me because it's in the past. You can't do anything about it. It happened already. You can do something now as you move forward, but it's very interesting the way our psyche works. We're so focused on trying to change or fix something that already happened. and not realizing logically, at least in this 3D dimensionality, we can't change what already happened. We can maybe change how we're continuing to carry it, but we can't change the thing. But that's what we want to change, right? Like, we'll use something really simple. Maybe you're with some friends, and one of your friends is kind of, poking fun with you and says a little something, and you're like, well, damn it, I can't think of anything right now. And like 2 hours later, you're like, I've got something. And literally your mind is thinking, if I could just go back and then say this thing. And then you stew on it, right? You sit there thinking about it in all the ways. You probably have the whole dialogue and chatter in your mind. You're like, yeah, they would say this, and then I would say this. And you spend hours in the story of your mind in the past. Instead of simply going, oh, there'll be another opportunity in the future. And maybe that's also part of the thing is, maybe the things that have happened in our past, both good and bad, most often the bad stuff we're already projecting as a possibility into the future, and we're afraid of it. That's why we put the armor up. But the good stuff, most of us aren't intentionally looking and going, that's definitely going to happen again. We're more like, oh, I wonder how I can make that happen, or I wonder how I can avoid the things that might not let that happen. And so then if you're wanting to move forward, part of the thing that's stopping you is the protections you're carrying as well as your doubt of possibility. How many of you would say that you doubt the possibility of the biggest goals that you have in life? I know there's some goals that I'm like, don't know if that's going to happen, right? I love a comment that another motivational speaker says. His name's Les Brown. He's a very exciting kind of motivational speaker. And he says, look, it's not about getting to where you want to go. It's the person you become on the way. And I love that. Because that means that you can go even if you don't think you're going to get there. That's called a moonshot, by the way. There's these amazing goals people have called moonshots. They know they're not going to make it to the moon, but on the way they make some big, big things happen. What would it take for us to stop being attached and obsessed on the destination and instead just start moving in the direction? Because I think that's also one of the things that stops us from even starting, is that we're at the beginning line, at the start line, you're getting ready for the race, you're like, okay, and somebody's like, where's the finish line? You're like, I don't know, it's so far over there. And they're like, well, screw that, that's too far. Because the mind wants to just get there in one step. That's not how it happens. Maybe a better visual is a mountaintop. You're at the foothill and you want to get to the summit, and it's not possible to go straight up, but you have to go around. And because you can't see the blind spots of the path on the other side, you're thinking, well, I don't know how to do it, so I just won't start. But you won't find out until you start. That's the thing. We have to be curious, like some of you said today. You have to just be curious and take the first step. And as you take that first step, you've moved up a little bit in experience, in elevation, and in confidence, and that gives you the motivation to take the next step, and the next step, and the clarity keeps building, but only if you've started. So one of the things that I think paralyzes us is we're too focused on the end, the finish line, the completion of something, instead of just letting that be a direction and just start walking. Just get going. This applies also to the things that we're trying to move past in our lives, right? If there's been things that you've been carrying with you, that you've been struggling with, challenges, sometimes the mind is like, this is overwhelming. I can't get out of it. There's no way. Just take a couple steps. Don't worry about getting all the way, because that's the beginning. And as you do that, again, your confidence grows. Also, an amazing thing happens in the mind. When you start to take steps and you start to experience things, and when I say steps, baby steps. You don't have to do big leaps and bounds, right? Just baby steps. And what happens is the mind does something. It starts to relax. See, most of the time, our mind, our brain, it's built to help us survive. And the best way that it knows how to survive is to not change anything. Because it's based on the past. And it's like, look, we're still alive right now. Don't change anything. I don't care if you enjoyed the last so many years. You're still alive. I'm doing my job. Don't change things. And then you're like, yeah, but I want to do this big thing in this project I've never done, or go experience this thing I've never experienced. And your mind's like, what? No! That's a big change. Don't you dare. And it'll start giving you all the reasons and all the doubts and all the insecurities as to why not. So you make a small change, a small step. And when you do that, your brain's like, no! Oh, okay, we're still alive. And then you do another one and another one. Your brain's like, okay, this isn't killing us. Okay, continue. And you can keep going, and all of a sudden you're building up. And everything in life is on a curve, right? It's called the slight edge. There's this wonderful book actually called The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. And it's this idea that everything's on a curve, which means it's exponential. And what happens is that as you start to move forward, even though a lot of the beginning will look like you're just on a straight line, and then you're like, boom, you launch off in this curve. Think of it like a plane that's taking off, right? It needs a long runway to build up the confidence, to build up the momentum, to build up the consistency, the confidence, and everything. And then once it has that, it can launch off with all these resources. That's how it works in our lives. But sometimes I think we begin, and because we're so focused on that end product and result, that we're going along, we're like, okay, I'm doing it, nothing's happening, forget it. Right? I think a lot of us have that, where we have a vision, we start going, and we're excited, we do maybe 4 or 5 steps in, and then because you don't achieve the result fast, you let it go. Or you switch over to something else. It's like being on a freeway, right, or even in a grocery aisle wanting to check out, and you're looking over and you're standing in line, you're waiting, or you're in traffic and you're waiting, and what do? Right? If there's a lot of traffic in your lane, you look over and that lane's going, you're like, why is it always the other lane? So finally, you move over, and then you keep going back and forth because it doesn't matter which lane you're in. Be consistent with one direction. Get clear about where you want to go. Make a choice. That's actually a big one right there. Make a choice. One of the things that Christina and I have noticed in our own relationship, and also when we start to work with others, we do a lot of relationship coaching for people, is that people aren't choosing things. And especially not the relationships. They're not choosing to be in the relationship. They're just letting it happen. All right, we'll see people starting to connect, and we'll wonder, maybe there's something's going on. And we'll ask them, like, hey, are you guys? And they're like, oh, we don't know. We're just seeing. We're just letting it flow. And we have a conversation with later, and we're like, yeah, they're not going anywhere. Because they haven't chosen to go somewhere. When you choose something, what happens is you do this. All the other options that are there, you go, I choose this one to cultivate, to take steps in the direction of, to build up and see what happens from it. Not, I'm going to wait and see which one grows. In everything in our lives, this is what we get to do. And especially the goals, the visions, the things that you really want in your life, the places you want to get to, you have to choose it. Probably some of you are even wondering to yourselves, well, but I kind of chose it, like I want it. It's not the same. You can want a lot of things, right? It's about getting clear of what you want, but then choosing the path that you're going to take to get there. And then being committed to it 100%. No matter what other temptations or possibilities or other things come up, stay on track, because it doesn't matter. Don't change lanes because this one's not going fast enough. Stay consistent. That's what moves us forward. It allows us to have something that I like to call safety. When we're consistent in life, or when we have consistency around us in life, it lets our nervous system go, I know what to expect. And it relaxes. And if you're feeling safe and your nervous system is feeling safe, guess what you put down? All the shields and all the armor that was weighing you down in that pursuit of what you want. And probably one of the biggest things that happens when we put down the walls that we've put up is that the support we've been waiting for, which was right on the other side of the wall, can show up because it can see us. Most of the time we're going to people wanting support with the shield. We're like, support me. It's not going to work. You're going to look and be like, yeah, I don't know, you're going into something dangerous. You got shields up. Like, making a choice in life, how do we know what part of us is making the choice? Right? Is it the head? Is it the heart? Is it the body? So our physiology makes a lot of choices for us, right? And I'll answer that with something that my mom once told me, and I think it's profound. Somebody asked her, how do you know the difference between when you're thinking something and when you're intuiting it? She said, well, it's simple. When it's intuition or your heart, it doesn't give you a reason. The mind will give you a reason. The mind's like, go do this because it's going to help you with that and this and that and blah, blah, blah. The heart's just like, go do it. And you might even ask, like, why? Just go do it. And this is a beautiful way that we can make the distinction, right? if we're being moved because something, and actually I'll add something to that came up in a talk recently. The other way that you know whether it's something that's moving you from your wholeness rather than just your reflective thinking is how you feel in your body about it, right? You'll feel alive in the body. You'll feel a sense of movement actually coming from the body. Whereas the mind will just be giving you some logical explanation about stuff. And most of the time, the mind is going to give you, yes, go do this because you're going to avoid this. Instead of, ooh, what might happen? With excitement, what might happen with me taking this step or doing this thing? The mind, instead of saying what might, it says what if. And then fills in the blank with something from your history. And if you're questioning it, I can only guess that it's probably because of something in your history that you didn't like. Because if it was something you loved, you would be saying might. Ooh, that might happen. This is all semantics and verbiage. But the idea, the concept is there. Are you moving from a place of urgency because you're trying to avoid something? Or are you moving from a place of inspiration towards something? The mind will always do it from avoidance. Because all it knows is how to reflect on the past. And funny enough, that means that you're facing the past. So you're looking backwards at life when your future is right there. Right? You're looking backwards and you got to turn around and start to move in the direction that is clear, because it's not going to be clear there. That's why, how many of you feel confused about your life path? You're like, I don't know where I'm going, I don't know what's happening, right? And that's because most of us are doing this. We're looking at our history and our past. We're like, just trying to feel our way a little bit towards the future, but not choosing what we want and saying, I want this. I love using my wife as my example. We get to make a choice, but to make a choice, we need clarity. To have clarity, we have to turn from what is our past and familiar towards the unknown. This is a bit of a paradox, isn't it? I'm saying you need clarity about what you're choosing, but at the same time, there's an unknown involved in it. And I think that's another piece that scares the bejeebas out of us and why we stop. It's like we're turning from that point of our history familiar towards the unknown possible potentiality of the future. And we have to do this certain move. I like to call it the Michael Jackson move. You're like, hee hee. But most people don't make it all the way. They only get halfway there because of this little part right here. They're like, hee ah. And they're stuck in the present moment unknown. Because over here is familiar. Over here is quasi-familiar because you're projecting an idea of what you want, so you kind of know where you're going. But how you get there, the bridge, the steps you're going to take, this is often very unknown. We can make a plan. We can hope the plan works, but we can't be certain about the plan. We try to be, but we can't be. There's no guarantee that that path is going to get you there. And that unknown quality scares people. So what do? They get halfway, they're like, I'll just go back to the way things were, and it wasn't so bad. I don't need that thing. I'm fine. They stay in the status quo, in a comfort zone. But if you're not growing, unfortunately, the reality of this world is that you're dying. There's only the two choices. You're either going up or down. And so we have to start to allow new experiences, the unknown. Isn't it funny, if I ask people, how do you feel about the unknown? People will be like, well, I don't know, I don't like it. I don't have control over it. But if I say, do you like new experiences? Yeah, that's cool. That's exciting. Something new? Okay. It's the same thing. The unknown has to be a new experience. How are you approaching it? Most of us are approaching it by filling the unknown with something that we think we know. I often say that fear isn't about the unknown, but it's about our projection of the known on the unknown. Meaning, we put the what if. It's not like you go, oh, I don't know what's going to happen along the way. What we do is we go, what if this thing that I don't want happens? Or what if that thing? Or what if it doesn't work? Or what if that? Or what if that? And we take past experience and we put it into the unknown. And then that's a block. Because it becomes a hurdle that we have to jump over. And the funny thing is, it didn't even exist until you plucked it from your history and your past and you put it in front of you. You got it in your own way. You ever wonder about that statement, get out of your own way? I think that's what it is. To get out of your own way means stop basing the possibilities of your future on your individual past. I'm going to say that again. Stop basing the possibility of your future on your individual past. Because do you think that you have lived every single possibility already? Probably not, right? Which means that if you base your possibilities in the future on what you have already lived and experienced, you just limited the heck out of what's possible. But if instead you step into the unknown and you go, maybe there's something more I could experience, that'll take you from, yes, it's a bit of the comfort zone with the familiar, but it'll take you from this anchor that's holding you in your history and what you've achieved already, and it'll move you into what you could achieve, what might be possible if you just start to take some steps. The mind tries to control how you get there. And the mind's job is to help protect you. And if the mind's job is to help protect you, it's going to tell you about all the obstacles and all the challenges that might happen. And that's the issue, right? We get so inspired to go in a direction. And that's, whether that's your own intuition or your own, power and things that are coming through, or maybe it's even just like the cosmic and collective consciousness starts moving through you. You happen to be in the right place for that inspiration. I think it's Brene Brown. Is it Brene Brown that wrote Magic something? It's like her second book. This idea that ideas come to you in that moment, but if you don't act on it, it's just going to go to the next person, right? Is it? It's Elizabeth Gilbert. Thank you. Is it Think Big? No. It's Magic. It's called Magic. Okay. I need to read up on this. But yes, this idea that there's things that come up, and they come up in the moment. And I like to call that emotion. It's not just inspiration. It's not energetics in general. It's energy in motion. It's emotion, right? And in the same way that sometimes we suppress our emotions for many different conditioned reasons, if we suppress that with our mind and think, oh, right now is not convenient because I don't know enough, I'm not old enough, I'm not strong enough, I'm not whatever enough, well, then the energy is like, no longer in motion. And now it's stuck. So are you. But what would happen if we kept it in motion? Even if we didn't know what the outcome was. Even if we didn't know where it was going. Right? This is kind of like Mel Robbins with the 5-second rule. There's another book I like to read. And 5-second rule says, if you don't act within 5 seconds, your mind is going to get in the way. Because after 5 seconds, your mind's like, why did you hesitate? You didn't hesitate this morning when you tied your shoes or brushed your teeth. Like, why are you hesitating right now? Something must be wrong and dangerous. And let's couple that then to this idea of emotion. If emotion, inspiration comes up in you, in that moment, move. Do something with it. Tell somebody about it. Do the next step of whatever it might take. Keep the excitement moving. Because when we start to pause, it gives a space, a gap, for the doubts and insecurities to come in. For the mind to start filling in whatever that hesitation is with possible dangers of our past. Now, along with that, let's answer some of those dangers the mind is going to tell you. Such as, oh, I don't know enough. Or I've never done that before. Yeah, you never walked before until you started to. You never drove before until you started to. You never even ate before until you started to. Before, it was just fed right into you, right? Right through the navel. So there's a lot of things that you rely on to live that you never did before, but you do now. So that means you can probably learn. And yeah, you might start off not knowing, but you begin the process, and in that process you're going to start to grow. And then all of a sudden, you do know how. And maybe you begin and you're not so good at it. Yeah, that's how we all begin. You get better. But only if you stay consistent. If you let the mind get in the way and start to give you doubts, then you'll be moving forward in something, and you'll be like, well, I'm not really making the progress I want. Maybe let me try to find something else. We're all after this instant gratification, quick fix kind of thing. And that's just not how reality works. There's moments where it looks like something happened overnight. It looks like things suddenly just went your way. But I can guarantee there was a long period of time that was building up where you were either sharpening the axe of your tool set and your skills, or you were positioning yourself in the right place for the right time. But it didn't just happen by happen chance. There were choices being made, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously, that led to whatever happens for you. So what would happen if you started to intentionally make those choices, intentionally move in the direction that you want, intentionally release the candy inside the coconut so that you actually have both hands free to move forward into the future that you want. Another example I can give for that is, did any of you play on we call them monkey bars in the States. I don't know what they're called elsewhere, but it's like the little horizontal ladder, right? In the playgrounds, where it's like some bars and you do this. You know what I'm talking about? And you know that if you slow down on that, if you lose your momentum, you're screwed. Because at first you're like, yay, yay! And then you're afraid to make the motion to go to the next one. Why? Because you got attached to the previous one. If I told you that probably the biggest thing that's stopping you from moving into your future is that you're afraid of letting go of your present. I'm going to say that again. Probably the biggest thing that's stopping you from moving into your future is that you're afraid of letting go of your present. Let that drop in. And the only reason you would be afraid of letting go of your present is if you have imagined that the future isn't going to be better. But why wouldn't it be? If everything in life is a compounding effect, meaning it's being built upon, that means that what you've learned, the wisdom that you've gained, the skills that you've cultivated, can only guarantee that the next phase of your life will be better, more clear, more intentional. Can be, if you're facing the direction of it. If you're facing backwards, then you're just repeating the same patterns. That's not going to help you. But if you're letting those things that have gotten you to where you are now to keep moving you forward, it's only going to keep growing. I like something that I read recently in a book about surrender. And the author was making the point that in surrender, you're not surrendering, out of weakness or giving up, but you're surrendering your identity, the limiting ego that you might have, and the plan that you think it has to go this way, to the greater possibility that you may not have even thought of yet that life might want for you, or at least be providing for you. I like to think that life isn't working for us or against us. It's working with us. But you have to give it the direction. And then all the resources of all nature and all history and all the cosmos is there for you, if you're willing to receive it and move in alignment in your own values towards that. But if you're working against it, which is most often the case, right? Let's say you have a plan, and that plan is like, okay, at this point, then I'm going to get married, and then I'm going to have children, and then I'm going to have this, and then this and that, and it has to happen in that sequence, and on my timeline. And then life throws you a curveball, and it starts to go differently. And what do? We resist. You're not going to win against nature. You're not going to win against the magnitude of life. Much better to go, okay, let me assume life heard me, life was understanding where I want to go. And by the way, life in the most practical way that I can put it is what you've told your brain to look for. Life is what you've told your brain to look for. Right? Your brain is looking for anything significant. If you say that's significant, it says, oh, let me look for more of it. It's called the reticular activating system. It's a part of your brain, right? When you start to realize that, then you realize, oh, so whatever I decide to make significant, life will show me more possibilities, tools, resources, and support for it. So all I have to do is know where I want to focus. And if I do that, it doesn't matter which way, how, or whatever I get there, I just have to keep trusting that life is working with me because I've told it. It's like I programmed my senses to look for those opportunities instead of being programmed on the things that you think might stop you and trying to solve the challenges. Cultivate the gains. I'm going to say that one again too. Instead of trying to solve the challenges, cultivate the gains. Cultivate the thing you want instead of focusing on the thing that you don't. That brings me back around to what I was sharing a little while ago on what my clients bring up a lot. So they've got these things that they're attached to in their life, and they're not letting it go. And one of the ways that I do my assessments with my clients is I do an energetic assessment using the organ systems and the energy lines running through them. And so then there's an association from different organs. And large intestine is the one where we're not eliminating something, right? We're holding on and we're not letting go. And I always tell my clients, I say, look, here's what's happening. There's something at the large intestine stage of your life. It's ready to be let go. That's why you came. You're like, I just want to release this. I don't know why. 4 years, I can't let this go. And I'm trying to understand why it's even there, why this and that. And that's the problem right there. You're trying to understand it. You're trying to draw out more from it than is already there. Once it's at the large intestine, it's already passed through the small intestine. Small intestine's job is to assimilate and integrate. So you eat food, it goes through your stomach, breaks down, goes into the small intestine, and small intestine looks and it goes, okay, that's going to be nourishing, that's nourishing, nope, put that one to the large intestine, that's nourishing, that's to the large intestine. Anything that's not going to be beneficial to you, it pushes off to the large intestine. Everything that's for you, it already soaks up into your body. Which means that if you are in something at the large intestine phase of your life, where you're already ready to let it go, stop trying to analyze, figure it out, understand why it's there. Just let it go. It's literally nothing but shit. Let it go. There's no value in it anymore. Now, I know I say that and people are like, yeah, but they say you're supposed to understand your past and your mistakes so that you don't make them again. There's a difference between integrating your history and your past and using where it brings you to go forward and being obsessed and focused on what has already occurred and trying to extract something from it. There's nothing more to extract. The experience was enough. Let that move you. So we're talking today about what's really stopping you. And literally, it's the backup of your past. It's you not letting go, releasing the things that are no longer for you. And I know how the mind works. The mind's like, yeah, but maybe it'll still be for me. Maybe it just needs to change a little bit. Maybe I'll need it in a couple more days or on a rainy day or this or that. And I'll draw your attention to probably something you've all experienced since you're traveling, you're here in Bali. I think a lot of us, when we first start to travel, when we go to somewhere like Bali, maybe we're only there for like a week or 2 weeks, and you probably brought 5 or 6 bags. You probably even struggled at the airport where they charge you for your extra badge. You're like, man, but that's what life does. It charges you. There's a cost to carrying more than you need. And once you got here, no matter how much you brought or didn't bring, you realize, all I need is a couple yoga pants and a sarong, and I'm good. Didn't really need so much. Why do we bring so much with us, weighing us down? Because we want to be prepared for any possible danger. And because we can't really, with certainty, know exactly what the threat, danger, or challenge might be, our head goes, well, just bring everything. So we bring all of our history and our past and our traumas and we bring it forward. And what I'm saying when I say let it go is the same thing that when you came and you realized, oh wow, I'm actually not using half of the things that I brought. In that realization, can you let go of those things now? And not go into the justification of your mind that goes, yeah, but what if I do need it? You haven't yet. Stop thinking you will. Let it go. Some of us even will have storage facilities back home, and you're traveling for like a year or more. You haven't even thought about the stuff that you had in the storage facility. You finally get back home, you're like, oh, I'm going to open up the storage locker and check out all, and you start going through your boxes. Why? Why are you trying to figure out what's there, what you forgot about? You weren't using it. You don't need it anymore. Let it go. It's a bit of a ballsy act and a bold, courageous thing to do. But I guarantee you, when you release that which you're no longer utilizing, that you are not intentionally choosing as part of your life today, I'm going to say that again. What you are no longer intentionally choosing as part of your life today. The intentionally is there because it's not about, yeah, but what if I might need it or an occasion? Are you intentionally doing that? Are you going in a direction you're going to need that? Well, no, but what if maybe? Nope. Let it go. Because it's just extra baggage and it's holding you back. And when you start to feel more light, you start to feel more inspired. When you feel more inspired, you start moving forward even faster. And again, it builds and builds and builds. You know, you look at Olympic swimmers, and one of the things that they do is they try to reduce as much friction from their bodies and their swimsuits and everything they have. Even they put the little cap on so that their hair doesn't get in the way, right? It's to reduce the friction in life. Because anything that you're carrying that you don't absolutely need to is friction in your life. If you want to move forward with more ease, let go of the things that are causing jagged edges in your life, that are holding you back. And the easiest way I can put that is any form of resistance. Any form of resistance is causing you friction. If it's resistance to how life has played its cards out for you in that moment, let it go. That's how life is. Accept what's true in that moment and then move with it. Take advantage of what's real, rather than wishing it was different. If it's resistance to somebody else giving you an idea, but you want to be like, no, I came up with the way I'm going to do it, and I want to own it, and I want to feel like I achieved it, that's all ego. Let it go. If somebody has a better idea, wonderful, use their idea. Like, go forward with it if it's an idea for you. Don't steal their idea. That's different. We have to get ourselves out of our own ego mind and start to move from a place of the goal in mind instead of our self in mind. I'm going to say that one again, too. We have to move towards the goal being in mind, not our self being in mind. Our self being your identity, right? Easiest way I can put this is, especially in relationship, this happens a lot. People will get into these deep arguments, like just, whoa, they're going at it. And it's because they want the same thing, but they want it from a different way, right? Maybe it's in every relationship that you've ever been in, can I with certainty say that you wanted love? Yeah? In some form, you wanted to feel loved and to give love, right? But we all give love and receive love in different ways. But we resist and we fight. It's like, but you're not loving me because you're not saying it in this way and these words and doing it in that way. Yeah, but I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Yeah, that doesn't matter. That's your way of loving. I want my way of loving. There you're focused on the self goal. The mind of self, the identity. You're closed. If the goal is to love, take every single possibility of expression of it. Don't worry about whether it's the one that you know or not. Get to know more. When we open ourselves to possibilities in life, we open so much more to what we get to experience in life. And again, that includes if you are moving through a challenging moment in your life, it's only because you haven't opened to the possibility it could be different. I always hear the same stuff from clients. They're like, this is just how it's always been. It's just what I have to deal with. Like, just help me deal with it. How about I help you see that there's a different way? You really want to let it go. But let's say that it's a physical condition. Something that you can't just let it go. Like it's something that has already manifested, probably because, again, over time, different things have compounded, and now there's a condition. You want to let it go, and that's what I was saying earlier. There's a desire. We can have desires. That's not enough. We have to choose what we want. Now, here's the thing. In a situation like that, when you've been suffering or challenged for long enough, you get really focused on the challenge and not on the possibility of something better. And in that focus, it means you're just wanting to get rid of it, and we're in an avoidant place. And that means that we're focused and cultivating the very thing we don't want instead of the thing that we do. I'll give you guys an example. A few years back, I worked with a lot of cancer patients. And what I found was that the people who would move forward and go into remission and clear the cancer were the ones who had decided there was something to live for. They were going towards something. They were super excited and inspired. Maybe they had children. They're like, I'm here for this person. The ones who weren't as lucky, it's because they were focused on just not dying. They were focused on getting past their suffering. They were focused on getting rid of the challenge. And when I say don't resist, it's not to give up. It's not to put up a flag and be passive. It's don't resist the reality of this moment. So if there's a condition that you're struggling with, the mind is working full-time to try to just desperately get out of that situation, which means it's resisting the reality of it. The first step is to go, this is where I'm starting from. And then begin to take the steps towards what you want, not what you're trying to get away from, but what you want. Now, I know that might seem hopeless if you've been struggling with the thing for a long time. That's why I say take baby steps and just stay consistent. Because if you're continuing to go in the direction of life and you consistently discipline yourself not to keep looking at the thing that's a challenge, because it'll be very easy that you're starting to go this way and a pain will come up or whatever the condition might be, and you'll immediately be like, you see, it's still there. I'll give you an example of my own personal experience. About 4 years ago, my back went out really badly. It was like a cosmic joke. I had just turned 40. I was so healthy, and I was like 40. Yeah, they always say, like, oh, what the hell? And I was so bad that I was bedridden, like actually on the floor for about, 2-3 months. Christina had to do everything for me. I could not get up without it being seizing pain. And it took a while for me to find out what was really going on. It turned out the last 2 discs, the fluid in them was gone. There was a small tear, so all the cushioning was gone. Therefore, my vertebrae were going in and pinching my spinal nerve. I can't tell you how painful that is. And there was definitely moments over those months that I'm laying on the ground and I'm thinking, this might be it. This might be the rest of my life. Okay, well that sucks. This wasn't the plan. And I started to get into some deep, dark places. And I started thinking to myself, when I would start to get a little smidgen of hope, and I'd be like, okay, no, I can do this. And I would get up and I'd be like, okay, it's not so painful. I can, and I'd be back on the ground. And I would think again, I'm never going to get through this. But the thing that finally did it was what I'm saying now. You have to discipline yourself not to fall into the doubts or the fears. Choose the direction you want, not let it choose you. If you want to get past the condition, if you want to really do that, choose it, and don't quit until you actually make enough progress that it starts to really look like the likelihood is going to be there. Don't let the moments on the way create doubt. And definitely don't let the history create doubt. That's a big weight that we carry. If we look at the history of our patterns when we weren't consciously choosing, well, that's a biased thing. It's way down, right? Now, that's the mindset. The practice physically, you have to do the practice of what will bring you more health, more vitality, more strength. For instance, for me, it wasn't about going and getting painkillers for my back or finding how to decompress it or this and that. Those are all avoidance strategies. It was about building my core so that the strength was there for this not to be an issue, even though it remains a challenge. It's still there, but it's not an issue anymore. Does that make sense? We let the challenges in our lives, no matter how great or how small they are, be the focal point when they need to be the thing that's just a nuisance, because what we want in life is greater. That make sense? I hope that's helpful. So I'm going to summarize a bit what we've been talking about today. What's really stopping you? That's been the topic for today's Heart Talk. And I think what's really stopping us is our own mind and our own patterns of being. It's our fears and things that get in the way. And if we can start to instead look forward towards what we want in life and choose it, and then with discipline consistently walk towards it, make baby steps, not great leaps and bounds. As you do that, what you're going to find is your confidence building, possibility growing, because you get outside the limiting identity of who you think you are to who you could be. And there's a beauty in that as you expose yourself to more and more of what life is presenting and allowing, because it's infinite. And all of a sudden, you have infinite choices of what you can have in life, what you can experience, and move in that direction. So maybe the very first thing, and what I invite all of you to as we end today's talk, decide what you want. Not what you're avoiding, decide what you want. And then with all of your energy, all 100% of you, go for it. Thank you, everybody.